Hi, Cayden. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. As I said last time, I am Cayden Codell. I am a current master's student at Carnegie Mellon University doing computer science research. My research right now is focusing on verifying the translation of different mathematical problems into propositional logic, because right now that is done by researchers, but it's not formally verified. So that's where my research focuses now. And I'm currently in Iowa.
Wow, I'm having trouble imagining how that's possible. Like what the techniques are. I mean, is
Well,
there?
I'm new to this kind of research as well, so I'm learning the techniques, but my advisors are well aware of the techniques. They were used in the formal verification of various proofs. And like the four-color theorem, which is a very popular result in mathematics, was a computer-aided formal verification. So those sorts of methods used by researchers are going to be at work here in my research, although at a little bit of a smaller scale.
And what got you into computer science?
I've I had been interested in math and science ever since grade school. In high school, I took a computer science course. I think it was my junior year, and then AP computer science. And I liked the part of it, and I was reading computer science books on the side. And I figured that if I wasn't cut out for math, then computer science would be a good next bet. And then junior year, I went and toured various colleges, and I found that I adored Carnegie Mellon's campus. They're very high ranked in computer science. And so I figured I like the college, I like the field of study computer science. Let's do it both. And I studied at Carnegie Mellon.
That's sounds awesome.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about the moon today, but Carnegie Mellon also has a robotics program that
Right.
actually has that spin-off, Astrobotics, that's right there in
Yep. I,
Pittsburgh.
as a TA, all sorts of students would come through. And one of my students, her name is Varsha, she worked as a research project with some of the roboticists that I believe sent something to either the moon or Mars. I think it was Mars. So she was she helped them by programming some pathfinding software. So navigating the rover over landscapes, she did some of that work.
That's really awesome. It must be really fulfilling to know that you've influenced people that are going out there solving all sorts of problems.
Sure. They're always doing wonderful things when they're not in my classroom. But my first goal is to teach them the course material that I'm given. So yeah, it's nice to hear good things about the people that I teach.
And um, I guess you and I talked about going to the moon before, but of all your students, what's your sense in terms of how many of them know that we're going to the moon in 2024?
Uh, I'm not sure that many of them keep up with NASA news. I know that there are. I'm also in the. I'm a physics. I was a physics minor, and so I knew people who were more in tune with the various announcements that were going out from the physics community. And physics is close to space exploration, but I wouldn't say that most of the CS people are keeping up to date on when we're sending different manned missions to the moon or Mars. If I had to give a ballpark estimate, I would say maybe 15 or 20%, but I really don't know if that's true.
That seems to be about my estimate from these interviews as well. Going up to somebody at Starbucks or on the street, I'm surprised at who knows and who doesn't know. But like both directions, it's like I would have thought they would have known, and then like that's kind of interesting. They have this interest that I had no clue about.
Mhm.
What do you think about us going to the moon?
I think that the first time that we went to the moon, it spurred a lot of technological progress and a sense of patriotism. I know that the first time we went to the moon, it was embroiled in the space race, and so we were racing with another country. And so this time around, I don't know if it has the same sort of competitiveness with another country, but maybe we're in a second space race with China and Russia. I think that going again would spur more technological progress and put funding into NASA and more private companies as well that are starting to do rocketry. Um, but the benefit of going, I'm not sure how much additional information we would get. Maybe you can put finer instruments on rovers and find out like where the water is, or more about the geological history of the moon. But I think most of the benefit is the journey and not the end of it, when we go to the moon or outside of our planet.
Yeah, the technological spin-offs is one of the things that advocates like to kind of tout. But whenever you think about back in the 1960s, like NASA had the top of the line computers, they were really pushing the envelope, they were doing material science, they were really searching for all these things, how to um, cryogenically freeze like hydrogen and oxygen. And now if you go to mission control, they're not even using the latest technology. They're using things that are several generations back.
Mm.
And you know, they're almost not pushing the envelope. They're using proven technologies. And I just was wondering what your thought was, in our current way of approaching space exploration, what kind of spin-offs do you think we could hope to get if that's the case?
Mm. It's an interesting question. I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that the technology at use at NASA and other agencies is a little old or outdated. Just the innovation, I guess, more these days is going towards private companies. One of my housemates was keeping abreast with every time SpaceX would land one of their rockets on some like moving platform. I think they landed in the ocean as well. They kept trying to make the place where they landed smaller and smaller. So I didn't see NASA doing that. That was a private company. So the question was, what's technological spin-offs? I think advances in material science and I guess propulsion. There might be ways of making it so that different propulsion methods than rocket fuel is used outside of the Earth's gravity well. I know that maybe you could think of, I think science fiction writers like to talk about shooting electromagnetic radiation or very highly charged particles that are waste of nuclear products out of the back of the rocket. That's your momentum and not necessarily burning things. But it's hard to get anything like that to get out of the Earth's gravity well. So I think that further advances there could be possible. I don't know about other things. Nothing else comes to mind from that. So that's where I'd put my bets.
I was thinking as you're talking about maybe communications technology, and what do you do whenever you have like this network where you have segments of it that are 15 seconds apart, or minutes or hours apart from each other. What do your protocols look like to have efficient information transfer?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I know that some developments in mathematics helped transfer information so that it's error correcting. I think there was error correcting codes that were developed when they had a moon rover or Mars rover. I learned about that in a combinatorics course that they used, forget the name of the mathematician, but error correcting codes to more accurately send messages across large distances in space when energy is a concern and when interference from solar radiation is also a concern.
Yeah, that's a common problem, is even like our computers can't be trusted because radiation's causing bits to flip unexpectedly. And they have like multiple computing systems that are essentially all coming up with the same answer, and then they kind of take a poll and see what the answer is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it was safe and affordable, would you go to space?
I think that I would go to space at least once just to get the experience, anti-gravity, seeing the Earth beyond just what you can see it in an airplane. I think there are several astronauts who say that they got a new perspective of the planet and the people living on it by viewing it from the moon or just in orbit. But I don't know if if given the option to live on Mars or one of the moons of Saturn or Jupiter, if I would take it. Just so much of my life is here. A lot of it would need to exist on these other bodies that would draw me away from the Earth. But I'd go
Uh,
for a pleasure trip.
but you would take maybe a week or 2 week trip to the moon?
Yeah, probably. That would be, if it were safe and affordable, I would definitely do that. I take a week or two trip to a different country, and then the moon is no different than another country.
Maybe slightly less populated. Though I tell you, far fewer people have died on the moon than in other countries.
Mm-hmm. There's also been far fewer people on the moon, so the
Well,
statistical dice are a little weighted there.
but how safe would it need to be? Like, how many people would have to go before you're like, hey, I'll go?
Mm. So the easiest metric to see is if your spaceship blows up, right? Yeah, you can very easily measure how many people get onto your spaceship and how many people get off the spaceship when it's back. But I think a lot of the problem with space travel is radiation, and so the effects of gamma rays or other things from space uh, hitting people will only show up many years down the line in cancer rates and other diseases that are caused by kinks in DNA. So I might wait until I'm middle-aged or so, or at least this has been around for a couple decades before I would start trusting that certain shielding is in place and things are safe enough for me to risk a trip like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you essentially have three factors at play. One is our ability to shield and protect people. Potentially that's increasing over that time. Two, as you get older, perhaps, in your mind at least, you're giving up less and less with that. But then the third thing is regenerative technology. Maybe at some point we don't care about the damage because we can fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I recently read a science fiction story which talked about longevity escape velocity was the term used in the story, where you have the idea of you can treat uh, aging concerns and the technology goes faster than the amount that extends your life. So if that increases and I can see evidence that, oh, the people will get this much increased risk in cancer, but then you just take a shot and it goes back down to whatever the background level is, then that would get rid of that concern for me.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. I see this as a kind of like a time capsule of people's views before the true space age. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about?
I guess I haven't been keeping abreast with the plans of NASA and other space agencies and companies. I saw, I think on Facebook that your image had someone on the moon and it said 2024. So is there a current project in place to get another manned mission to the moon in 2024?
Yes, it's called Artemis, which is interesting because Artemis is actually the sister of Apollo in Greek mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a big rocket that's being developed called the Space Launch System, SLS, and a capsule called Orion. The first launch of that is supposed to be October of this year. It's going to be uncrewed. It's just going to send the capsule around the moon and back to Earth and just test out the system. Then in 2023, they're supposed to launch it with 4 astronauts who would just go around the moon and come back. One of those astronauts, incidentally, is going to be Canadian, and that'll be the first Canadian around the moon. And then in 2024, that same vehicle was supposed to dock with like a human landing system that will then take them to the surface of the moon and back up to the capsule, and that's what's currently planned. And pretty much everybody coming into the new administration is like, that's unrealistic. We need realistic timelines, needs to be pushed out. But the new NASA administrator is currently saying that he's going to try to keep that date. So it's kind of interesting to see the focus on that still.
Mm-hmm. Well, ambitious people can get a lot of things accomplished when they have teams willing to do it and the funds and the vision to do so.
Absolutely. Well, Any other questions, I guess?
I guess so. You say that you're using this as a time capsule of various people's um, thoughts and beliefs regarding this trip to the moon. Will this is this just a personal project, or is this going to be collated and published somewhere? Like, what's the end goal for this?
Well, so all the videos are posted unedited to YouTube and on my countdowntothemoon.org website. I
Mhm.
do have plans to use like YouTube transcription service, pull into a database, and people be able to do keyword searches and maybe be able to help classify like different people's views, and maybe we could do some correlation and stuff. But all that's very theoretical, and it's like in the dream state right now.
Right.
Um,
That's for future you.
that's for the future me. That's
Mhm.
the me after 2024.
Mhm.
um, but in terms of like goals, I kind of envision like this high schooler on Mars being given an assignment to go and do a project on what were people thinking before the first steps on the moon in 2024. I mean, the second steps, I guess. Um, and coming across these videos is sort of like research material.
Mhm.
It's kind of like the frame of reference I kind of view it as.
Sure. A more qualitative kind of survey or ethnography for this point in time. I think it's a wonderful project.
Yeah, it's definitely been neat. I've gotten to talk to a lot of people and explore lots of views. Um, so it's been good from that. And it gives you a good reason, excuse to talk to anybody. You're going, hey, I'm doing this project, and we can have a substantive conversation without necessarily having a sensitive conversation.
Mhm. Yeah, I might take a look at the website and see who else catches my eye and might see their video. So uh, you may have just reeled me into your audience.
That's awesome. I think you'll be more satisfied after I get the interface hooked up, so you
That's
can
true. Sure. I'll wait for you to figure some things out then.
exactly. Well, awesome. Well, you have a good rest of your day. And if you know anybody else that's willing to have a chat about the future of humanity, send them my way.
Sure. I'll ask around. My mother's connected to a local university that may have a couple personalities for you. So I'll let you know if anybody turns up.
Well, thank you very much. Well, you have a good night then.
Yep, you too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.